Many of life's challenges are approached with urgency only after they have fully arrived. Problems often demand attention when their consequences become visible, their impact unavoidable, and their damage already underway. Yet there is a different path, a quieter, less visible approach, that focuses on preventing these problems before they emerge. This is the essence of upstream thinking, shifting from reacting to crises to proactively addressing their root causes. Upstream thinking challenges the habit of solving problems after the fact. It encourages stepping back to examine why these problems occur in the first place. In many cases, the solutions are not hidden, they are simply overlooked because the mind is conditioned to focus on immediate concerns. By moving attention upstream, one can uncover opportunities to prevent difficulties, reduce risks, and build systems that minimize the chance of recurring failures. This way of thinking applies across all areas of life: health, education, business, relationships, and society. It requires asking deeper questions, recognizing warning signs, and coordinating efforts to intervene early. Upstream thinking is not about quick fixes but about building sustainable solutions that reduce future harm. The journey begins with learning how to move upstream, how to see problems coming, and how to stop them before they start. Chapter 1: Moving Upstream. The concept of moving upstream begins with recognizing that much of what people consider problem-solving is, in fact, crisis management. Society tends to focus on symptoms rather than causes, reacting when problems have fully materialized instead of working to prevent them. This reactive mindset is deeply embedded in everyday systems. It shapes how schools address underperformance, how healthcare responds to illness, how organizations handle failures, and how individuals approach personal challenges. Moving upstream requires a deliberate shift, a conscious decision to stop waiting for problems to escalate, and to start intervening at the earliest possible point. The difficulty with moving upstream is that upstream work often feels invisible. Success in prevention is hard to measure because it is defined by what does not happen. A prevented crisis leaves little evidence, and because the problem never surfaces, it may appear as if no action was needed in the first place. This illusion makes it easy for people to undervalue prevention and to remain stuck in the cycle of reacting to emergencies. Moving upstream also introduces complexities that reactive problem-solving does not. Preventive work often spans multiple systems, departments, or stakeholders. It may require cooperation between people who do not usually work together or alignment across organizations that have historically operated in isolation. The process can be challenging because upstream solutions often fall outside the immediate responsibility of any single person or team. When a problem does not clearly belong to anyone, it is tempting for everyone to step back and assume that it is someone else's responsibility. Yet the cost of ignoring upstream opportunities is significant. When individuals, teams, or societies fail to address root causes, problems persist and often grow worse over time. Resources are repeatedly spent on treating symptoms, while the underlying sources remain unaddressed. Moving upstream allows for more efficient use of energy, time, and resources by reducing the volume and severity of future issues. Taking upstream action begins with asking better questions. Why does this problem keep happening? Who is affected before it becomes a crisis? What early signs can reveal that trouble is forming? These questions shift attention from reacting to creating solutions that cut problems off at their source. Learning to think upstream is a skill that requires practice and awareness. It calls for persistence in situations where results are not immediately visible and where success is measured by absence rather than presence. As the journey progresses, the barriers to upstream thinking become more apparent. What prevents people and organizations from stepping in sooner? What mental habits and systemic structures keep them trapped in reactive cycles? In the next chapter, we will begin to explore these barriers and why they hold such power. Chapter 2: Problem Blindness. One of the most persistent obstacles to upstream thinking is problem blindness, a condition where individuals or societies fail to recognize the presence of a problem because they have come to accept it as normal. When something harmful or inefficient occurs repeatedly, people may stop questioning it. Over time, these problems become invisible, woven so deeply into everyday experience that they no longer provoke concern or curiosity. Problem blindness often begins with the belief that certain negative outcomes are inevitable. People may assume that traffic congestion, school dropouts, chronic health issues, or even workplace failures are simply facts of life, unavoidable byproducts of complex systems. When problems are treated as natural and unchangeable, efforts to prevent them are rarely considered. This acceptance quietly closes the door to upstream solutions. The danger of problem blindness is that it erodes responsibility. If a problem is believed to be a permanent part of life, there is no urgency to question its source or to imagine alternatives. People adapt to inefficiencies and risks, developing workarounds rather than seeking true solutions. This silent surrender allows problems to persist for years, sometimes even generations, without significant challenge. Problem blindness can also be reinforced by familiarity. When people are repeatedly exposed to the same issue, they grow desensitized to its impact. The sharp edges of the problem become dull over time. For example, long waiting times in healthcare, rising rates of preventable illnesses, or persistent educational gaps may no longer provoke alarm because they have come to feel routine. Familiarity gives these problems a false sense of permanence. Yet problem blindness is not irreversible. It can be broken when individuals pause to question what they have long accepted. This often happens when someone from outside the system, a newcomer, a visitor, or an outsider, points out what insiders have stopped noticing. Fresh perspectives can reveal what has become invisible through repeated exposure. Asking simple questions like, "Why do we accept this?" or "Has it always been this way?" can bring hidden issues back into focus. Identifying problem blindness is the first step toward upstream thinking. It requires developing sensitivity to the systems and patterns that shape everyday life. It also demands the willingness to challenge assumptions and to resist the comfort of passive acceptance. By recognizing that problems often persist not because they are unsolvable, but because they have gone unnoticed, individuals and organizations can begin to shift from resignation to prevention. But even when a problem is clearly seen, another force can hold people back from addressing it. Many know the problem exists but feel powerless to act. They become trapped in the belief that the issue is someone else's responsibility. In the next chapter, we will explore this next barrier, lack of ownership, and how it further limits upstream action. Chapter 3: Lack of ownership. Even when a problem is fully visible, it often remains unsolved because no one feels responsible for fixing it. This barrier, known as lack of ownership, is one of the most common reasons persistent problems survive in organizations, communities, and societies. Many problems exist in spaces where the boundaries of responsibility are unclear. When a problem does not clearly belong to any single person or department, it is easy for everyone to assume that it is someone else's task to address. In complex systems, responsibilities are often divided into specialized roles. Each person or team focuses on their assigned tasks, and anything outside those assignments is considered outside their domain. This structure, while useful for efficiency, can create dangerous gaps where no one feels accountable for broader issues. Problems that cross these gaps are left unattended, simply because they fall between the lines of established responsibility. This lack of ownership is not always the result of neglect or carelessness. Often, people genuinely believe that they do not have the authority or capacity to solve the issue. They may view the problem as belonging to another team, another leader, or another agency. They may feel limited by formal job descriptions, organizational boundaries, or the belief that upstream work is someone else's responsibility. The danger of this mindset is that problems can grow larger, while everyone waits for someone else to take the lead. Inaction becomes a shared habit, quietly reinforced by the structure of the system itself. When everyone steps back, the problem gains strength, becoming more costly, more complex, and harder to reverse. Overcoming the barrier of lack of ownership requires a shift in thinking. The question must move from, "Is this my job?" to, "Can I contribute to solving this?" Ownership is not always about formal authority. It often begins with personal initiative. Many upstream successes start with individuals who choose to take responsibility, even when it is not explicitly assigned to them. They see the problem and decide to act because they understand the cost of inaction. Collaboration can also fill the gaps created by divided responsibilities. When people from different teams or organizations come together to discuss shared problems, new pathways to ownership can emerge. Ownership does not have to rest on a single person. It can be distributed across partnerships where each participant contributes to the solution. Building a culture of ownership requires leaders to reward initiative and support those who step forward. When people know they will be supported rather than punished for acting outside rigid boundaries, they are more likely to take responsibility for problems that others overlook. But even when ownership is established, another powerful barrier remains. It is the challenge of limited time and mental space, the tendency to focus on urgent problems at the expense of long-term prevention. In the next chapter, we will explore this next obstacle, the cycle of short-term thinking known as tunneling. Chapter 4: Tunneling. One of the most persistent forces that prevent upstream thinking is the phenomenon known as tunneling. Tunneling occurs when people become so consumed by immediate demands and daily pressures that they lose the ability to think beyond the present moment. The mind narrows its focus to short-term survival, responding to urgent tasks while neglecting long-term solutions. In this tunnel, upstream thinking is pushed aside, not because it lacks value, but because there seems to be no time or capacity to consider it. Tunneling is especially common in environments where resources are stretched thin, where emergencies are frequent, and where the pace of work leaves little room for reflection. In these circumstances, people prioritize what is right in front of them. They respond to crises, solve the next problem on the list, and move rapidly from one urgent issue to another. This way of working becomes a pattern, one that feels inescapable and increasingly normal. The trap of tunneling is that it creates a cycle. When only immediate problems are addressed, root causes remain untouched. As a result, the same problems continue to reappear, often growing more severe. This repetition generates more emergencies, which further consume attention, pulling people deeper into the tunnel. Over time, the opportunity to step back and prevent problems seems to disappear entirely. Tunneling also distorts decision-making. When under pressure, people may choose quick fixes that offer short-term relief but carry long-term costs. They may neglect important maintenance, avoid difficult but necessary conversations, or defer investments in prevention. These decisions provide temporary comfort but increase future risk. The tunnel blocks the wider view, causing even thoughtful individuals to prioritize urgency over importance. This cycle is not limited to organizations, it affects individuals as well. When people feel overwhelmed, they often resort to short-term coping strategies, neglecting health, relationships, or personal growth in favor of immediate relief. Over time, this approach can erode well-being and limit future opportunities. Escaping the tunnel requires deliberate action. The first step is to create protected time for upstream thinking. Without intentional space for reflection and prevention, the tunnel will always dominate. Even small periods dedicated to asking, "How can we prevent this from happening again?" can begin to break the cycle. Supportive leadership also plays a critical role. Leaders who encourage their teams to prioritize prevention, even in the face of daily pressures, help to shift the culture. They signal that upstream thinking is not optional or secondary but essential. Breaking free from tunneling is difficult because it often feels like stepping away from what is immediately pressing. But the cost of staying in the tunnel is the endless repetition of preventable problems. Even when the tunnel is escaped, another complex question emerges. How do systems coordinate efforts to act upstream when many players and organizations must work together? In the next chapter, we will explore the power and necessity of uniting the right people to create lasting upstream solutions. Chapter 5: Unite the Right People. Upstream problems rarely exist within the boundaries of a single person, department, or organization. They often stretch across multiple systems, requiring cooperation among people who may not ordinarily work together. Solving these complex problems demands more than individual effort. It requires the right people, connected across the right networks, working in coordinated ways. Without this collaboration, even the most well-intentioned upstream efforts can falter. When people address issues in isolation, their solutions often remain incomplete. They may only see part of the problem or lack access to information that lies beyond their immediate environment. For example, efforts to improve student graduation rates cannot succeed if schools work alone without involving parents, community organizations, and social support services. Problems that cross social, economic, and institutional lines need joint ownership and shared responsibility. Bringing the right people together begins with identifying who is affected by the problem and who holds influence over the systems connected to it. Sometimes, the most valuable contributors are not formal leaders but individuals positioned at key points within the system: teachers, caseworkers, frontline staff, or community members, who have practical knowledge and direct impact. The process of uniting people for upstream work is rarely simple. Different organizations often have different goals, priorities, and methods. Misunderstandings, mistrust, and competing agendas can stand in the way of collaboration. Successful partnerships require clear communication, patience, and the willingness to build trust over time. Partners must recognize that no single group holds the entire solution. It is the combination of perspectives, resources, and authority that allows for meaningful upstream change. Coordination becomes especially powerful when data is shared across systems. When agencies, organizations, or teams exchange relevant information, they gain a fuller picture of the problem's origins and its warning signs. Data sharing can reveal patterns that remain invisible when each group works alone. For example, coordinated health records, school attendance data, and community service reports may uncover risk factors for future problems before they escalate. Leadership plays a crucial role in uniting the right people. Leaders who prioritize upstream thinking can create formal structures that encourage collaboration. They can establish cross-functional teams, design shared goals, and allocate resources to support preventive efforts. When leaders remove barriers and promote open communication, they build the foundation for sustained upstream partnerships. Sustaining collaboration over time requires a shared sense of purpose. When partners see themselves as working toward a common mission, one that reaches beyond individual interests, they are more likely to remain engaged, even when progress is slow or challenges arise. Upstream work demands patience. Its successes are not always immediate, and its efforts are often invisible to those outside the partnership. Yet these quiet, coordinated actions can prevent harm, improve systems, and strengthen communities. Once the right people are working together, the next step is to find reliable early warning signals. To prevent problems effectively, systems need to detect them before they fully develop. In the next chapter, we will explore the critical role of identifying and responding to these early indicators. Chapter 6: Find a point of leverage. Upstream thinking is not simply about working harder, it is about working smarter. Preventing problems at their source requires identifying points where small, well-placed actions can create significant, lasting impact. These points are known as leverage points, specific areas within a system where an intervention can set off a chain reaction, reducing or eliminating the problem efficiently. Leverage points are not always obvious. Systems are often complex, with many interacting parts, and the place where most attention is directed is not always where the greatest influence can be applied. For example, repeatedly dealing with student absences at the point of disciplinary action does little to solve the underlying issue, but intervening earlier, by supporting transportation, mental health, or family stability, may drastically improve attendance with far less effort. Finding a leverage point begins with mapping the system. This means stepping back to understand how the parts connect, where bottlenecks occur, and what drives the patterns of behavior. Looking at the system as a whole helps to reveal the forces that sustain the problem. Often, the most effective interventions are those that occur long before the crisis point is reached. A key principle of upstream work is that timing matters. The earlier the intervention, the greater its potential to prevent harm and reduce cost. For instance, investing in early childhood education often has a more profound and lasting impact than later academic interventions. Similarly, early health screenings can prevent the development of more serious illnesses. These examples highlight how upstream action, when well-timed, can deliver extraordinary results. But finding the right leverage point also involves understanding the motivations, incentives, and behaviors of those within the system. Sometimes problems persist because people are operating under misaligned incentives that unintentionally reward the very behaviors that sustain the issue. Adjusting these incentives can become a powerful point of leverage. For example, if a healthcare system is structured to reward the number of procedures performed, providers may unintentionally prioritize treatment over prevention. Changing the incentive structure to reward improved health outcomes can shift behaviors across the system. Not all leverage points are complex. Sometimes, simple changes can produce outsized results. Minor process adjustments, removing small barriers, or introducing timely reminders can significantly alter outcomes. Identifying these simple leverage points often requires careful observation and a willingness to experiment. Finding a leverage point does not guarantee immediate success. It is often necessary to test interventions, measure results, and adjust strategies as more is learned about the system. Effective upstream thinkers remain flexible, knowing that even well-designed solutions may require refinement. Once leverage points are found and activated, the next critical task is to identify the early warning signals that indicate whether a problem is forming. Recognizing these signals allows preventive systems to act swiftly and decisively. In the following chapter, we will explore how detecting these signals early can stop problems long before they reach a crisis. Chapter 7: Detecting Early Warning Signs. Preventing problems before they fully develop depends heavily on the ability to detect early warning signs. These signals, often subtle and easy to overlook, provide valuable information that trouble is forming. By identifying these indicators early, individuals and organizations gain the chance to intervene at a stage when solutions are less costly, less disruptive, and far more effective. Early warning systems are common in many fields. In public health, rising flu cases can signal the need for immediate vaccination campaigns. In education, declining attendance can predict future academic struggles. In manufacturing, small variations in equipment performance may point to impending failure. Across all domains, the earlier a problem is detected, the greater the opportunity to stop it from escalating. The challenge is that early warning signs often appear fragmented across different sources. In complex systems, no single person may see the entire pattern. One department may observe a minor issue, another may notice a different small irregularity, and neither may recognize they are witnessing parts of a larger emerging problem. Building effective early warning systems requires coordinated data sharing and communication across teams and organizations. Sometimes the data needed to detect early signals already exists, but it remains unused because people are not actively looking for patterns. In other cases, early indicators are known but not acted upon, either because they are not fully understood or because no system has been designed to respond in time. Successful upstream strategies depend not only on seeing early signals but also on responding quickly and decisively when they appear. Effective early detection often requires new ways of listening. This may involve tracking non-traditional data sources, observing informal feedback, or paying attention to groups whose concerns are typically overlooked. For example, in a school setting, teachers or support staff may be the first to notice subtle changes in a student's behavior long before the issue becomes visible in formal assessments. When these frontline observations are ignored, valuable time is lost. Technology can also enhance early detection. Automated systems, predictive models, and data analytics can help identify trends that would otherwise go unnoticed. However, technology alone is not enough. The people using these systems must trust the information, be trained to interpret it correctly, and have processes in place to take preventive action quickly. Another important aspect of early warning systems is making the signals actionable. If the warning signs are unclear or if people do not know what steps to take when they see them, the system fails. Early indicators must be linked to clear intervention protocols that allow rapid response. But detecting and acting on early warning signs does not automatically solve the deeper issue. Sometimes, even when a system intervenes early, the root cause remains unaddressed, and the problem continues to return in new forms. This raises a deeper question: How can systems build structures that prevent problems from resurfacing in the long term? In the next chapter, we will explore how to build systems that continue to improve and sustain upstream success. Chapter 8: Systems Thinking. Upstream problem solving requires more than isolated interventions. It demands a complete understanding of the systems that produce those problems in the first place. Systems thinking is the discipline of seeing the larger patterns, the interconnected structures, and the feedback loops that shape outcomes over time. It recognizes that individual events rarely occur in isolation. They are usually the visible surface of deeper, recurring processes. Many solutions fail because they target symptoms without addressing the system that generates them. For example, reducing hospital readmissions by adding more discharge instructions may offer temporary relief. But if patients return because they lack stable housing or community support, the deeper system continues to produce the same result. Systems thinking challenges people to look beneath events and ask, what is causing this to happen repeatedly? One of the core principles of systems thinking is that behavior is a product of system design. People within a system often respond predictably to the incentives, pressures, and constraints they face. Changing individual behavior is difficult if the surrounding system continues to encourage the same patterns. To create lasting upstream solutions, the system itself must often be redesigned to produce better outcomes naturally. Feedback loops are central to understanding systems. In some cases, feedback reinforces the problem, creating a vicious cycle. For example, when early school dropouts lead to unemployment, which then increases family instability, the conditions that contributed to the dropout may worsen for the next generation. In other situations, positive feedback loops can strengthen success. For example, small health improvements can build confidence, which leads to further healthy behaviors. Identifying these feedback loops helps upstream thinkers know where to intervene effectively. Sometimes a small change in the system can disrupt a negative cycle and create momentum for improvement. For instance, providing support to first-generation college students can set off a chain reaction that improves educational attainment within families for years to come. System redesign often involves adjusting policies, realigning incentives, and restructuring processes so that desirable behaviors become easier and more natural. This is not about forcing compliance but about making it simpler for people to make better choices. When the system encourages success, it reduces the need for constant supervision or correction. Systems thinking also emphasizes the importance of measuring the right things. Focusing on surface-level metrics can give the false impression of success while deeper problems continue unchecked. Upstream leaders must look for indicators that reveal whether the system is truly improving or whether it is merely shifting problems to another area. Changing systems takes time, and the results may not be immediately visible. But sustained effort in redesigning systems offers the best chance for preventing problems from returning in different forms. Even with well-designed systems, upstream work requires persistence and resilience. It is often a long process filled with uncertainty and slow progress. How can individuals and organizations maintain commitment to upstream work over the long term? In the next chapter, we will explore the importance of continuous improvement and how small, steady changes can sustain upstream success. Chapter 9: Continuous Improvement. Solving problems upstream is not a one-time achievement. It is a continuous journey that demands ongoing attention, refinement, and learning. Systems are dynamic, and the conditions that surround them evolve over time. Without deliberate efforts to monitor and improve, even the most effective upstream solutions can become outdated or lose their impact. This is why continuous improvement is essential in sustaining long-term success. Continuous improvement begins with recognizing that no solution is ever perfect or permanent. Even well-designed interventions can produce unintended consequences or lose effectiveness as circumstances change. The key to upstream resilience is remaining open to feedback, consistently measuring results, and making small adjustments that strengthen the system over time. The principle of continuous improvement requires the ability to detect early signs of drift, moments when the system begins to slide away from its intended outcomes. For example, a school program aimed at reducing absenteeism might succeed initially but gradually lose effectiveness if attention shifts, or if new challenges emerge that were not originally part of the plan. Early detection of these shifts allows timely adjustments that keep the system aligned with its goals. Small, consistent improvements often deliver more sustainable results than large, infrequent overhauls. By focusing on manageable changes, organizations can reduce resistance and maintain momentum. Small wins accumulate, building a culture where improvement is expected and where teams are empowered to identify and address problems proactively. This mindset protects systems from stagnation and prepares them to adapt to new challenges. Another essential element of continuous improvement is learning from failure. In upstream work, not all preventive efforts will succeed immediately. Some interventions will fall short, not because they were poorly designed, but because upstream problems are inherently complex and sometimes unpredictable. When failure is viewed as a source of valuable information rather than as a permanent setback, it becomes possible to refine strategies and build stronger, more effective solutions. Continuous improvement is best supported by creating structured opportunities for review and learning. This may involve regular performance assessments, feedback sessions, or collaborative problem-solving meetings where all stakeholders share observations and insights. These practices create a rhythm of reflection that keeps attention focused on what is working and what needs adjustment. Leadership plays a crucial role in sustaining this process. Leaders must consistently prioritize upstream thinking, allocate time and resources for improvement activities, and foster an environment where teams feel safe to experiment, report challenges, and propose new ideas. When leadership models curiosity and persistence, it signals to everyone that continuous improvement is not optional, it is essential. Even with a strong system of improvement, upstream work can sometimes encounter challenges that lie far beyond the immediate sphere of influence. Certain problems are so large, complex, or distant that they require special strategies to prepare for them. These are the issues that can feel impossible to address because they may or may not occur, yet their impact would be catastrophic if they do. In the next chapter, we will explore how to confront these rare but significant threats and how to prepare for problems that exist far upstream. Chapter 10: Far Upstream Problems. Some of the most difficult problems to address are those that exist far upstream, issues that may not surface for years, decades, or even generations. These problems are challenging because they carry uncertainty, they often seem distant from immediate concerns, and their solutions may require long-term commitments that exceed individual lifespans or organizational cycles. Yet, the potential impact of far upstream problems can be enormous, and ignoring them can carry catastrophic consequences. Far upstream problems typically have warning signs that are easy to dismiss because they do not pose immediate threats. Climate change, public health crises, food insecurity, and infrastructure vulnerabilities are examples of issues that may unfold slowly, often over decades, yet their effects can be devastating once they reach a tipping point. These problems test the ability of individuals, organizations, and societies to plan beyond short-term interests. One of the key challenges with far upstream issues is that they often suffer from the chicken little problem, a reference to the tale where early warnings are dismissed as overreactions. When people are warned about dangers that seem far away, there is a tendency to question whether the concern is real, whether the problem is solvable, or whether action is truly necessary. As a result, it is common for these early warnings to be met with skepticism or indifference. Yet history is filled with moments where those who listened to distant warnings were able to avert large-scale harm. Preventing far upstream problems requires extraordinary vision and persistence. It also requires systems that are willing to invest in solutions whose benefits may not be immediately visible. Governments, organizations, and individuals must cultivate the discipline to prioritize these long-term investments, even when resources are limited and attention is pulled toward urgent, visible problems. Addressing far upstream threats is also a matter of preparation. Even if some problems cannot be fully prevented, their impact can often be softened through early action. Building resilient infrastructure, strengthening healthcare systems, and establishing rapid response mechanisms can significantly reduce the damage when distant threats eventually materialize. One effective strategy is to develop scenario planning, a method of considering multiple possible futures and preparing for a range of outcomes rather than betting on a single prediction. Scenario planning encourages flexibility, creativity, and readiness. It shifts thinking from asking whether a specific event will happen to asking whether the system is prepared if it does. Leadership plays a crucial role in mobilizing efforts against far upstream threats. Leaders who can effectively communicate the risks, build trust in the preventive process, and rally people around shared long-term goals are essential in keeping attention focused on these distant but significant challenges. Even though far upstream problems may seem removed from daily life, the ability to anticipate and prepare for them is an integral part of upstream thinking. But the question remains, how can individuals personally apply upstream strategies in their own lives and decision-making? In the next chapter, we will explore how upstream thinking extends beyond large systems and into personal habits and everyday choices. Chapter 11: Upstream. Upstream thinking is often discussed in the context of organizations, governments, and large-scale systems. Yet the principles of preventing problems before they happen also apply on a deeply personal level. Individuals can shape their own lives, health, relationships, and work environments by developing the habit of personal upstream thinking. In this way, prevention becomes not just a public strategy but also a daily mindset. Personal upstream thinking begins with becoming aware of patterns in one's own life. Many challenges, whether related to health, finances, or time management, do not appear suddenly. They build gradually, often providing early signs that go unnoticed or ignored. By learning to pay attention to these signals, individuals can take small actions that prevent much larger problems later. For example, consistently feeling exhausted at the end of each week may indicate deeper issues with workload, rest, or boundaries. Waiting until burnout occurs is a downstream response, but adjusting work patterns, improving sleep, or setting clearer limits are upstream actions that can prevent exhaustion from becoming a crisis. The same approach applies to finances, relationships, and personal goals. Small, preventive choices accumulate and shape long-term outcomes. The principle of problem blindness is just as relevant on a personal level. Many people accept recurring struggles as inevitable parts of life. They may resign themselves to chronic stress, disorganization, or repeated conflicts without questioning whether these issues can be prevented. Personal upstream thinking requires challenging these quiet assumptions. It begins with asking, "Why does this keep happening, and what can I do to prevent it?" Lack of ownership also plays a role in personal life. It is easy to believe that certain problems are someone else's responsibility or that circumstances are beyond control. But upstream thinking encourages reclaiming personal responsibility wherever possible. While external factors certainly influence outcomes, there is often more room to act than it first appears. Taking initiative to solve small problems before they grow can shift the trajectory of larger challenges. Tunneling affects individuals just as it does organizations. The pressure of daily tasks can narrow focus to immediate concerns, leaving little time to think about prevention. Carving out deliberate space for reflection, whether through journaling, quiet planning, or regular self-assessment, is essential to stepping out of this tunnel. Without these pauses, life can become a constant cycle of reacting to the next problem. Personal upstream thinking also benefits from continuous improvement. Small habits, regularly reviewed and refined, can create lasting changes. Whether in health routines, communication patterns, or time management, consistent attention to prevention builds momentum over time. The mindset of moving upstream is not limited to grand public initiatives. It is a discipline that shapes everyday choices. When individuals actively prevent problems in their own lives, they create space for growth, peace, and sustained progress. But what does it take to truly integrate upstream thinking into both personal and collective life? In the final chapter, we will explore the mindset of an upstream leader, someone who not only sees problems before they emerge but consistently works to prevent them across every sphere of influence. Chapter 12: The Upstream Mindset. Developing an upstream mindset is not simply a collection of strategies. It is a disciplined way of thinking that influences how people see the world, how they define success, and how they choose to act. It requires stepping away from the instinctive habit of reacting to visible problems and instead making a conscious commitment to look for the invisible causes that lie beneath the surface. The upstream mindset begins with curiosity. It is driven by a desire to ask questions that others may overlook. Why does this problem keep happening? What forces are shaping these outcomes? Is this situation truly inevitable, or have people simply accepted it as unchangeable? Those who adopt an upstream mindset are never content to treat symptoms alone. They continuously seek to understand the roots of the challenges they face. A crucial aspect of this mindset is accountability without boundaries. People with an upstream orientation resist the urge to draw strict lines around their areas of responsibility. They do not wait to be told that a problem belongs to them. Instead, they voluntarily take ownership of issues that affect the larger system, even when those problems do not fall within their formal roles. They understand that in complex systems, waiting for someone else to act often leads to inaction. Maintaining the upstream mindset requires long-term focus, especially in environments where urgent demands dominate daily life. It is easy to be pulled back into crisis management, where visible problems demand immediate attention. Those who think upstream develop the discipline to protect time and mental space for prevention, even when surrounded by urgent tasks. The upstream mindset is also characterized by resilience. Preventive work is often slow, sometimes invisible, and occasionally met with resistance. Success may not be immediately apparent, and failure is part of the process. Upstream thinkers must be willing to persist in the face of setbacks, continually refine their approaches, and remain committed to the larger goal even when progress is not easily measured. A defining feature of the upstream mindset is the ability to connect across systems. Upstream problems frequently span multiple teams, organizations, and sectors. Those who succeed in this work build bridges between groups, unite diverse stakeholders, and facilitate shared understanding. They do not limit themselves to solving problems in isolation but actively seek collaboration to create solutions that are sustainable and wide-reaching. Leaders who embrace upstream thinking become catalysts for systemic change. They model curiosity, accountability, and long-term commitment. They create structures that support prevention, reward initiative, and encourage continuous learning. Through their example, they inspire others to expand their view beyond immediate crises and toward the prevention of future harm. The upstream mindset does not eliminate every problem, nor does it offer guaranteed success. But it provides the most powerful approach to reducing harm, building resilience, and improving systems over time. In the final reflection, we will explore how the pursuit of upstream thinking can reshape not only the systems around us but also the way we live, work, and lead. Chapter 13, Conclusion: The Upstream Choice. Upstream thinking offers a powerful yet challenging alternative to the traditional approach of reacting to problems only after they have fully materialized. It invites individuals, leaders, and entire systems to shift their focus from crisis management to prevention, from short-term fixes to long-term solutions. This is not an easy path, nor is it one that offers immediate rewards. The discipline of upstream thinking demands patience, persistence, and a willingness to invest in outcomes that may never be directly visible. The core message of upstream thinking is simple: problems can be prevented. They are not all inevitable, and many of the most persistent challenges in personal life, organizations, and society endure because they remain unexamined. They are either hidden by problem blindness, lost in the gaps of unclear ownership, overlooked in the rush of daily urgency, or dismissed as too distant to warrant attention. Choosing to think and act upstream is a deliberate decision, a choice to believe that efforts spent today can reduce harm tomorrow. It is a choice to examine not just the events that happen but the systems that allow them to happen repeatedly. It is a choice to accept responsibility, even when the problem does not officially belong to any one person or group. This choice requires people to resist the pull of the tunnel, to challenge the comfort of familiar cycles, and to rise above the distractions of immediate demands. The journey upstream is not about perfection. It is about steady, thoughtful action. It is about learning to see early warning signs and designing systems that respond to them effectively. It is about finding leverage points where small, well-placed interventions can have far-reaching effects. It is about building partnerships that cross traditional boundaries, recognizing that no single person or organization can prevent large-scale problems alone. Importantly, upstream thinking is not reserved for leaders of large institutions or government agencies. It is equally relevant to personal life. Each individual can choose to prevent rather than repair, to prepare rather than scramble, to build rather than patch. In daily routines, relationships, finances, health, and work, upstream thinking creates the opportunity to live with fewer preventable crises and greater long-term stability. There is no final destination in upstream work. Systems change, problems evolve, and the work of prevention continues indefinitely. Success in this space is not always marked by visible celebrations. Often, it is measured by what does not happen: the absence of crises, the reduction in harm, the quiet strength of systems that hold firm under pressure. The upstream choice is one that must be made repeatedly. It is the decision to step back from the rush, to ask deeper questions, and to seek lasting solutions. Whether on a global scale or in personal life, this choice has the potential to reshape outcomes, to improve systems, and to leave behind a path that others can follow. Ultimately, the upstream path is not just about solving problems. It is about building a life, a community, and a society where fewer problems emerge in the first place. Upstream thinking empowers us to break free from the exhausting cycle of reacting to crises. It challenges us to step ahead of problems, to design systems that protect rather than repair, and to take ownership of what can be prevented. Whether in our personal lives, workplaces, or communities, we hold the power to shape better outcomes through foresight and intentional action. Let this be your call to rise above short-term distractions and embrace the mindset that stops problems before they start. If you found this summary valuable, subscribe, like, and explore more summaries that can transform the way you think and live.